MP, who is now no longer in the House, I'm pleased to say, declaring that I must want him because he was a powerful man. These sorts of things, the power abuses that a very small minority, thank goodness, of male colleagues show is completely unacceptable.
It's amazing, isn't it? So that's Anne-Marie Trevelyan. If that happened here, you know, even after a late night bash, as sometimes we want to do here at Global, I don't see that ever happening. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Maybe they should just get rid of the bars. Would that work? We don't have one here. They used to have one at the BBC where I was working. ITN used to have one. I used to work for ITN, but it was way, way before my time. So there's a lot going on. The Daily Mirror's lead story on tennis legend Boris Becker being jailed over what the paper describes as a bankruptcy scam. It says Boris to serve time. Get it? Boom, boom. Becker was sentenced to 2.5 years, so he'll do a year and 3 months already after being found guilty of 4 charges under the Insolvency Act after he concealed ownership of valuable property following filing for bankruptcy in 2017. That's only the least of it. I mean, there's just a lot there anyway. He had, what did they reckon? He had 38 million quid once. No, not. The Sun talks about that. They also talk about the breakup of Helen Skelton's marriage, the BBC presenter who was married to Chimila, I think, the rugby league star. Anyway, Helen's agony over hubby's new woman is the exclusive in the Sun today. I think they've got 3 children together. One of them's very young, very sad. The Sun's headline, pretty much like the Mirror's. It shows Boris Becker at Wimbledon kissing the trophy when he was a 17-year-old boy. I can't tell you how surprising and how magnificent a victory that was, and to come back and defend it the next year at 18. But there's obviously some character flaw there elsewhere. The headline is Time. There's been a pun in the word time. And the Wimbledon champ Becker nets 2.5 years jail for £2.5 million fraud. The Sun estimates that the value of assets hidden by Becker after he declared himself bankrupt was £2.5 million. All those people he owed money to, he said, well, I haven't got any money. And you're going, well, actually you have. 54-year-old was told by a judge at Southwark Crown Court in London he'd lost his career, reputation, and all your properties. I have to admit, I was a bit of a sort of news geek yesterday, because I was at lunch. My brother's over from Australia, and I'll tell you a few tales of what happened yesterday, because it was quite an interesting day overall. But one of the things that I was sort of waiting the whole time, looking at my Twitter feed, and look, I very rarely go on Twitter, but I wanted to basically see. I knew he was up before the peak, and it said he would face sentencing this morning, and we were at lunch, and at sort of by 3 o'clock it still hadn't come through, and then eventually it came through. So I was sort of watching that all the way through, and I was really surprised. I thought, celebrities tend not to be sent to jail. It happens. We've seen it with people over there, but this is a very, very famous man. I guess it's because he had previous as well. He kind of committed some sort of financial indiscretion when he was up before the German authorities as well. So we'll talk about Richard Kay, the former royal correspondent of the Daily Mail, has written a really interesting piece about what he calls the astonishing decline and fall of jailed Boris Becker. The Daily Mail, you've heard, they're still banging on about whether or not Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner should be done by the police for their beer and cake. The Daily Express, relentlessly upbeat. The Daily Express front page features a poll which has found that the soaring cost of living is the most important concern for the public rather than Partygate. The paper reports people say the revelations of lockdown parties across the government are bottom of their list worries. And the Financial Times, banking giant HSBC is under pressure to split into 2 operations, one Asian and one European. They also report on this amazing story about the Premier of the Virgin Islands, trouble in paradise, being arrested by the Americans for basically facilitating cocaine importation. It's quite amazing. The time is 4:30. Serena Farrow has the headlines.
The Conservative under investigation for allegedly watching pornography on his phone in the Commons chamber suggested he may have opened it accidentally. Neil Parish has rejected calls, though, to stand down as an MP. British intelligence is to help Ukrainian war crimes investigators establish the chain of command between leaders in Moscow and Russian commanders on the ground. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said a team of experts will be travelling to Poland next month as the evidence is gathered of Russian atrocities. And the Met Police want another bid to challenge the High Court's ruling over the Sarah Everard vigil. High Court judges refused the force permission to appeal against its ruling, which concluded that officers breached the rights of organisers with its handling of the planned event in March last year. Although Scotland Yard confirmed that they're now seeking permission from the Court of Appeal to challenge that decision. LBC weather dry and bright for many this morning, with the rain moving in from the northwest though. A dull wet day for Northern Ireland and Scotland with a high of 15 degrees.
This is LBC. It's time to celebrate this April with a new offer every day only on the McDonald's app. That's 30 days, 30 plays. Download the app and tap to play for today's offer. Offers a chance-based selection or pre-selected by us. Each offer ends at 11:59pm. 18 plus, participating restaurants only. T's and C's apply. See website.
At PensionBee, we're building a pension company you can believe in. Be pension confident. Join at pensionbee.com. Capital at risk, authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Co-op Funeral Care.
Hi, it's me again. I just had a thought. My wife adored the violin. She even played it at her wedding. So I think there has to be violin played at her funeral.
Oh, I'm sure she'd have loved that.
Yeah, as long as it's not me playing.
From funeral plans to funeral services, we're here to make it personal every step of the way. To find out more, visit your local Co-op Funeral Care or go to co-op.co.uk/personal funerals. Co-op is what we do.
Behind every great business is great tech and great coffee. Oh, is that for me? Can I get a tiny bit of milk? Thank you so much. But may they never meet. That's why with Business Tech Essentials from Direct Line, if your laptop or phone gets damaged, we'll get a new replacement to you within 24 hours of claim approval, so you can get right back to work. Search Direct Line Business Insurance. We're on it.
Cover and claim limits apply. Monday to Friday, 8am to 6pm, except bank holidays. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Ian Payne.
Okay, so brief menu, heads up. This is what we got coming up in the next sort of half an hour, 45 minutes. We're going to talk about some of the stories that you may or may not have seen in the papers this week. So really fascinating stuff, sort of off-piste, as it were, off the main drag. We're going to talk about some shows that you may or may not have seen on Netflix that I might recommend or not. The latest Marilyn Monroe documentary, also The American Factory, which is a fascinating culture clash between the Americans and the Chinese, and also The Batman, which I've managed to download and watch. That's the new Robert Pattinson superhero exchange. Why is the Conservative Party and the Daily Mail so obsessed, says Nick, with beer, maybe even a bit of pizza? Don't they know there's a war on, says Nick in Oxford. That's a reference to the Daily Mail, which had a front page story talking about Partygate when it was anti-Tory, saying, well, don't they know there's a war on? What's the point of these? And Amanda says, where is the honour and respect in this government? Most other jobs would face immediate dismissal for disgusting behaviour, like watching pornography in Parliament. I'm waiting for the inquiry. Is this another job for Sue Gray? I thought the government was all about global Britain. Makes me ashamed to be British. Actually, there's a piece about Sue Gray, it reminded me. It's about the type of coffee you drink tells a lot about the type of person that you are, and the Times helpfully turned it into a division of two. Are you a Sue Gray coffee drinker, i.e. an Americano? Yes, I am. Or are you a Taylor Swift latte kind of person? What your coffee says about you. The Partygate interrogator this is basically because they're taking a picture of her, she's got a coffee in her hand. The Partygate interrogator has been spotted placing her order in Pret, and it tells us a lot. Here's what a person's beverage reveals about their character. If you have an oat flat white, like the person who written this article, they fancy themselves as rather more sophisticated than latte people. We actively like the taste of coffee, yeah? Don't need to smother it in 3/4 fluffy milk to 1/4 espresso proportion. Thanks, and don't get us even started on cappuccino people. I could go on, but what about extra hot people? What's all that about? The configuration of their order is irrelevant. Latte, flatte, whatever-y, eh? All that matters is that it arrives extra hot and they'll lean in over the counter fretfully to ensure the barista has understood that they want it really, really hot, not just really hot. What does it matter whether you have a hot coffee or a very hot coffee? I don't understand that at all. Cappuccino people, only really in it for the chocolate, and literally everyone knows it. Caramel latte people, pumpkin spice latte, any form of syrup in your latte people. The syrup-laden latte is the coffee order equivalent of an Alco Pop. It's for people who also eat the icing straight off the top of a cupcake. Then they leave the cake. Oh, who would rather be downing WKD but don't want to be left out of the fractious early morning Costa Q experience? This is sounding a bit London bubbly. I have an Americano. I used to have quite a lot of shots in it, 3 or 4, but now I'm down to 2. As I get older, I can't. Or you go to the Nespresso machine here, which very, very rarely works. But when it does work, I always have an Intenso, which, as I said last week, even though I don't speak Italian, I think means strong. Do you reckon? Intenso. And the disposable cup people, indulging enduring fantasies first awakened by the opening credits of Cagney and Lacey. I don't even know what that reference is. I know Cagney and Lacey, it's a long time ago. Right, let's get to the phone lines. Harry wants to have a word. Kia and beer. On you go, Harry.
Oh, yes, party, what is it, party beer gate? Have we got a name for it yet?
I don't know if we've got a name for it. I'm sure we'll think of something. Labour Gate.
Bottle of beer gate, because that's the main picture of the photo. Sir Keir holding that bottle of beer up to his lips.
Yeah. What's the difference between, when you think about it, what is the difference between what he did and what Boris has done?
Well, I don't think there is. You see, what I'm quite annoyed about is we've been saying for a couple of weeks now, we're fed up with Partygate, but still Starmer and the rest of them were harping on about it, because that's what they want. I've just noticed there's salvos of text coming in to defend the Sir Keir end, we're tired of Partygate. Well, no Labour support was tired of Partygate in the last 2 weeks, to my knowledge.
Right, yeah. Why do you think they lied about Angela Rayner being there, or at least the press officer had no awareness that she was there?
Well, my interest in Boris Partygate had subsided, but now Partygate, my interest has risen like a cake in the oven.
Oh, nice one! Like the way you've done that. Your interest has peaked again, hasn't it, Terry? Come on.
Yeah. Right. I thought, well, it's just this thing where Keir Starmer's denying it, and then we've got this little fact about that, a barrister should be full, frank, and honest. Those are the sort of words.
Well, did you hear the latest story? So the latest story in the Mail yesterday. I mean, no way having a go at the Mail. I think they're doing some great journalism here. But they had a good story the other day saying that the barrister who was advising Sue Gray in her report is a Labour Party sympathiser and has tweeted as such, although he's now got rid of all his tweets. But then the Cabinet Office said, look, he's been told that he has to be impartial. That's what lawyers are. So this could get messy.
Yeah, there's more twists than a Wagatha Christie novel.
Oh, very good, Harry. You were on superb form this morning. Thank you very much indeed. It's 21 minutes to 5 o'clock. Right, let's look at some of the stories you may or may not have missed. I must admit, when I first saw this advert on telly, I thought, well, adverts are normally a bit nonsensy, and I'm not having a go again at advertising. My son's an advertiser, lots of friends of mine work in advertising. I know how difficult it is because you are totally and utterly bound by the rules of the Advertising Standards Association and the client, i.e. the people who are selling their product, telling you what you must and mustn't do. So I know how frustrating it was, but really what Samsung came up with the jogger jogging at 2 a.m. in the morning. Seriously? Has anyone... I would ask whoever wrote that ad to come with me and come into work at 2 a.m. in a city centre, i.e. here in London, at that same time that she's jogging through empty streets and everyone's really happy to see her. I would urge you to come in with me at 2 a.m. and see the absolute zoo that is the middle of London at that time of the day. I will tell you, Let me just read a little bit about it, and then we'll get a view from a guest who was on LBC earlier. So this is the Samsung advert featuring a woman who, first of all, looks at her Samsung watch and it says 2 a.m. and you think 2 a.m. perfect, let's go out or let's go to bed. But no, she decides to go running because it's empowering, because she decides when to go. She runs along. She's followed by an owl. I don't know why. And she meets people on her journey, people coming out of clubs, and they're all like, they're not drunk at all, they're all having a good time. And she high-fives someone selling newspapers early in the morning, or something like that. And then weirdly, she's followed on a bridge by a guy on a bike, and instead of it being creepy, they're like friendly, and they think this is really happy. It's bizarre anyway. Anyway, Samsung have apologized after their advert was described as tone deaf and disrespectful by runners and campaigners amid concerns for women's safety. It comes after the death in January of Aisling Murphy, an Irish teacher whose murder whilst on a run in County Offaly led women to share their stories about experiencing harassment using the hashtag she was on a run. Exactly. In the advert, a young woman wearing Samsung headphones goes running as a voiceover says, "Sleep at night, run faster, push harder, follow the herd. Not for me, I run on a different schedule. Mine." I mean, it's absolutely balmy. The editor of Women's Running magazine, Esther Newman, said the ad was balmy and she'd laughed when she first saw it. No women that I know, and they are women from our orders, would consider running at 2 o'clock in the morning on their own in the middle of the city with their headphones on. I rest my case. Here's Jamie Klinger, co-founder of Reclaim These Streets, which raised concerns about the ad. She told LBC the whole thing was ludicrous.
A woman getting up at 2 a.m. and putting in headphones to go running? Like, what world are we able to do that in? Because it's a world I really want to live in. It's not reality. Somebody tweeted back at me today, the only run she's gone for at night in London is when she ran from a group of men.
Quite right. You could say, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts actually. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC to tell me whether or not you think that any publicity is good publicity. Do you think if this will benefit Samsung in the long run? Samsung have apologised and said it was never meant to be insensitive. Like I say, is all publicity good publicity? And speaking of crazy things during the week, have you heard this? This is this Russian show called Guess the Gay. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe this. A notoriously homophobic Russian MP has become the presenter of a reality show in Moscow in which contestants have to guess which one of them is gay. Vitaly Milanov, who is the author of Russia's anti-gay propaganda law, was featured in the first episode of the online program officially called I'm Not Gay. Finding a gay in our community, says a voiceover, is like finding a working McDonald's. They definitely exist, but there are very few of them, and not everyone knows about them. The show involves 8 men living together. At the end of each episode, they vote to expel a contestant that they suspect of being gay. If they guess correctly, they share 2 million rubles, about 21 grand. If the gay man successfully evades detection, he will win that prize. The reactions of the contestants are, quote, tested during the show by parades of scantily clad models. I hope that you will quickly figure out who is gay, said Milanov. No, sorry, he says, I hope you will quickly figure out the gay, says Milanov, telling contestants, making a throat-slitting gesture. After the man falsely identified one of their fellow participants, Milanov told them, "You've killed an innocent person." The show has been viewed almost 700,000 times on YouTube. What's the point of this? Said one social media user. Who are you going to expose next? Muslims? Jews? Although homosexuality is not illegal in Russia, under a law written by Milanov himself that was approved by President Putin in 2013, it is a crime to promote a homosexual lifestyle to minors. Human rights activists say the law legitimizes everyday discrimination and triggered a rise in hate crimes. An ultra-conservative Russian Orthodox Christian, Milanov recently traveled to the Donbass war zone in eastern Ukraine. You could not make it up. I will take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll give you a couple of things you might have seen during the week from in the foreign news, including the sweltering temperatures in India. It's approaching 50 degrees Celsius, and I'm afraid another major World War II power is rearming itself because of the looming Russia. It's 4:45.
LBC.
I'm David Lammy here on LBC. The flag and patriotism has been adopted by the far right. Patriotic is something that people are not comfortable with. Why have we not got a civic patriotism or a civic nationalism? It can include all of us. You don't have to be white. Join me, David Lammy.
train home, calling us a job well done and ready for bed via 6 McNuggets or a warm apple pie. Our final destination, as always, is home. Plenty of McDonald's restaurants are open late tonight. See mcdonalds.com for opening times.
So me and the boyfriend went to Benson's for beds. We can't agree on anything. I'm always hot when I sleep, and he's always cold. They recommended a Slumberland mattress that suited us both. Then he wanted a stylish base, I wanted storage. We both won, and they found a headboard we both liked.
At Benson's for Beds, we'll make your bed your way. Then we'll build it in the UK just for you. And right now, save up to 50%, plus further discounts until Tuesday. Search Benson's for Beds. Sleep made better. Terms and conditions apply.
Want a career in digital media? Global Academy is a unique media school recruiting Year 10 and Year 12 students for September 2022 enrolment.
When I do apply for a job, I already have most of the skills needed.
That's what makes Global Academy unique. Kickstart your career in media. Visit globalacademy.com.
Collect a 25,000 Avios welcome bonus with the new Barclaycard Avios Plus credit card when you spend £3,000 in your first 3 months. That could whisk you from everyday to getaway. Check your eligibility now. Search Barclaycard Avios Plus. Representative example, 72.4% APR representative variable. Purchase rate per annum, 23.9% variable. Based on a credit limit of £1,200. £20 monthly fee. Subject to application and financial status. Eligibility and conditions apply. Welcome bonus for new customers only.
Ian Payne on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
A little bit of reaction to that article about what the coffee you drink says about you. Bruce says, I only drink cold brewed coffee. What does that say about me? I don't know. Are you serious? You drink coffee cold? I'm not sure about that. Is that illegal? The article says, Jim, regarding who drinks what coffee excludes instant coffee drinkers. Do journalists not drink instant? No, Jim. We're well beyond that stage now. Like I say, we watch all the ads. We like the coffees, and Nespresso is our coffee of choice here. But the machine never works. Consult your Nespresso representative. That's a famous one. Okay, I'll do I've got some other great quotes from some of the Netflix stuff that I've been watching this week, particularly The American Factory. It's absolutely brilliant. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Anyway, stories you may have missed away from the main news agenda here. So India is sweltering. In Delhi, they've had temperatures not even the hottest part of the year yet. It's not even summer. 48 degrees Celsius. We're getting warm temperatures here in London of 18 degrees later on today, and everyone's talking about how, I think that's how weather forecasters always say that the weather will pivot. I mean, what's this new word, pivot? Where's that come from? Don't know. Anyway, change, maybe? That's what we used to say. India swelters in 48 degrees Celsius, and it's not even high summer. And it's got so hot that some of the communal rubbish tips have just spontaneously burst into flames, because they kind of, apparently they get all sort of, it's a bit like if you've cut the grass, you've got a big lawn to cut, and you put all the grass cutting to the bottom of the garden. If you put your hand into that after about a day or two, it'll be really warm, and sometimes it actually sets fire. But these temperatures have set fire to huge rubbish tips all over Delhi. Can you imagine anything more alarming? Yes, I can. Japan doubling its arms spending to counter the threat from China now. Oh my God. Japan's ruling party is proposing to double their defence budget to about £86 billion, breaking restrictions that were imposed after the Second World War as fear grows of threats from China and Russia. So we've had Germany rearming, and now we've got Japan rearming. Honestly, it feels like a blooming it feels like a time warp. What's this say? Today we're going to get degrees of 34. Oh, in Mumbai this is. I was going to say. I was looking at that going, what? Oh, it's in Mumbai. Yeah, so what does it say for Delhi? Could you check Delhi? Because I think that's even hotter, to be honest. Yeah, 45. Oh, God, today. So if you are listening from Delhi, our thoughts are with you. The historic move by Japan would mean military spending rising to 2% of GDP, the benchmark set by NATO members, and will be welcomed by Washington after 2 decades of US pressure. Isn't that depressing? So the Germans are rearming, and now the Japanese are rearming as well. You know how people get arrested abroad, and sometimes, like poor Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, they get treated abysmally, and there's great sympathy. Well, the government here have absolutely washed their hands of this gentleman. This is a guy called Jim Fitton. He's 66. He's a retired British geologist, and he is facing the death penalty in Iraq after being accused of attempting to smuggle out ancient artifacts. Seriously? He's being abandoned to his fate by the Foreign Office, apparently. He was arrested at Baghdad airport on March the 20th after customs officials found 12 shards of broken pottery in his luggage. What are you doing, man? The father of two, who lives in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, was in Iraq for a geology and archaeology tour. He's being held in a cell at the airport ahead of his trial, which is expected to take place in the second week of May. Fitton's son-in-law said he picked up the fragments while visiting Iraq's historical sites, which had no signs warning against their removal. Dear oh dear. He says his father-in-law would never have attempted to take the shards back to Malaysia had he been aware of the perceived severity of the act. One feels sympathy, sort of. And how about this? We do like bird stories. I always like the odd bird story. So this is a cuckoo who's travelled 60,000 miles. Okay, so he had a little tracking system in it, a cuckoo, remember? So he started off on July the 13th last summer from Suffolk, and he reached Gabon. If you know Gabon, it's sort of, it's west coast, and it's on its way down to sort of Namibia. It's fairly southern. So he arrived on November the 12th. So July to November, it flew 30,000 miles to Gabon. Then he began the return journey on February the 22nd from Gabon and arrived back in Suffolk in April. So 2 months to get back. That's extraordinary, isn't it? PJ's called. He first flew to the Republic of the Congo, then pushed on to Ghana and the Ivory Coast. Why do they do that? Why do birds have to fly so far? Right, Netflix, things you may or may not have seen. So let's start with the thumbs up. That's a thing called The American Factory. The American Factory, I don't know if you've seen it. It's about it's a windscreen glass factory which was working for General Motors in Ohio through the Rust Belt, and everyone lost their job when the factory went belly up. Everyone was unemployed, and they were saved by a Chinese billionaire, Fu Yao, I think they're called, who make glass, and they introduced this experiment where Chinese people would come, they would sort of leave their families and come and live in Ohio for 6 months in these tiny little flats, just working every hour that God sends. And there are also far more employees who are American who'd lost their jobs, who are now being re-employed. However, they're being re-employed on very, very much poorer terms. For example, one woman said when she worked for General Motors, she earned $29 an hour doing her job. Now she was being paid $12.80 an hour. And the big culture clash was all about the unions, whether or not they were allowed unions. They had a vote about the unions, and the guy who ran the company said, if you form a union, I shall withdraw all my money and leave America. So that put them in a difficult situation as well. But what was so fascinating about it is the culture clash and the way in which the two societies, you really do realise the difference between East and West when these two meet, and how the two societies look at each other and regard each other. There's some secret filming done of and some secret recording of tapes done during meetings whereby whereby the Chinese president will address the Chinese workers and say the thing about Americans is they never get told they're doing something wrong. They're always encouraged, they're always flattered, which means you can never ever criticize them because they just go off on them. Whereas the Chinese will, if they're told that they're not doing very well and they need to work harder, they'll turn around and say, I'll work harder, rather, and they'll just accept it. And they come up with these great expressions. One union discussion, he says, Americans love praise. He says, donkeys should be stroked the way their hair grows. It's one of their phrases, which basically means, I suppose, don't rub them up the wrong way. And also because they need a culture that's going to be dominant. Someone says, we need to help because one mountain cannot hold two tigers, they say. So it's a documentary. The hopes of all the local people soar when the Chinese company reopens a shuttered factory in Ohio, but a culture clash threatens them. It's very, very interesting. And basically the Chinese say, we think we're better than you, and the Americans say, we think we're better than you. And the Chinese can't understand why the Americans don't work harder. One guy says, well, how many hours a day do you work? And one of the Americans says, about 8. And he goes, 8? He says, yeah, we do 12. And it's like, what? 12 hours in a factory? He said, and you get every weekend off as well. He goes, well, yeah, why? Because we've got other things to do. Why? What's more? Work is life is one of the phrases that comes up. So big tick for that. I think it's really interesting. I'm not quite so sure whether or not the mystery of Marilyn Monroe, the unheard tapes, is really, I mean, it's about so Marilyn Monroe died in 1962. This was to go along with a constitutional investigation in 1982 to try and make sure that she died of, say, natural causes, but she basically committed suicide, whether by design or accident, or was there something nefarious going on? Because, of course, she was having an affair with both Kennedys, both Jack Kennedy and his brother, Bobby. And was she giving away state secrets? It's one of those again, can you really prove it? No, you can't. And I'm afraid this just doesn't really add anything, to be honest. Have a look and see what you think about it and let me know, because I'd love to get some feedback rather than just me being in an echo chamber somewhere. So you tell me what you think about the American Factory or the mystery of Marilyn Monroe. You don't have to, you can watch it tonight or next week or whatever and let me know. But if you have watched it, I'd love to get your feedback on it as well.